Hey, what's up guys, Rip here. So today we're going to be going over some very concerning developments regarding the video game industry. And this is something that unfortunately a lot of people should have seen coming because the trend was heading in this direction for a very long time. Now with videos like this, I have to remind some people of the new way stuff works on YouTube. Apparently, the only way you probably count as a view, even if you watch the whole video, is if you're an engaged viewer, someone who likes, subs, or comments. That's the new system. It's really stupid, but all those sorts of engaged activities, quote unquote, do help videos like this get out there because it's already kind of destroyed because of the heavy topics in today's video. So all that stuff helps. Don't feel like any obligation to do that, but I just wanted to mention that so you can help out my channel and other channels you enjoy as well. So, as you can see, Steam updates its rules to comply with payment processor censorship, purges multiple titles. Details below by Niche Gamer here. And if you start looking around, the main subject for today's video is this group called Collective Shout that prides themselves on trying to end the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls in media. Now, as you might already guess, this is going to be filled with a lot of feminist type propaganda, a lot of misdirection where these sorts of concerns are ultimately aimed at attacking creative freedom in video games in particular. And you're also going to see some disturbing levels of hypocrisy as this group has come out and defended the undefendable in media. But let's continue on. So recently they made an effort where they targeted payment processors. I made an open letter to all these companies to say, hey, stop monetizing these problematic behaviors. And they tag all kinds of payment processors like PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, what have you. And guess what? It worked. They got hundreds of games removed from Valve. And a lot of these are small niche games with hardcore themes. There's no way around it. And as someone who has no interest in these games in the first place, I still think they should exist if people want to purchase them. If you're an adult, you have the ability to go out and do those things. I think that is within your rights. And anyone who is complaining otherwise, either one, they should not play games that are already labeled as these adult topics or adult content. And on top of that, if you're worried about kids getting into it, that is a parental issue. You have to control the media that your children are consuming. That's on you as a parent. That is not something new. That's been the case for a very, very long time. Now, within all this, there was also a new rule put onto Valve. We can say content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. I cannot stress enough to you how vague and open this is. This could target pretty much your typical like hentai game, all the way to like Baldur's Gate 3 and games like that. This is a huge net that they're casting to the point where people are really noticing. The backlash on this has been immense. This is a small group of Australian feminists that somehow have convinced Valve to take down titles and set new standards. And thank God, people are starting to notice. There's a lot of backlash on social media to the point where Elon Musk is trying to spread awareness about this issue with payment processors. Now, of course, if you've been paying attention, especially to my channel, or anyone kind of in this space, we've been talking about this for a long time. There has been concerns over and over again about how this sort of, I guess, cycle with payment processors will extend beyond the initial targets. The initial targets being a lot of Japanese companies, particularly art platforms, video games, manga, all that stuff. Basically, these payment processors were pressured or on their own volition went out and said to these companies, if you don't get rid of this problematic content, we're pulling our services, basically rendering them with no monetization whatsoever. If you lose Visa, Chase, MasterCard, whatever, you're basically dead in the water. You're losing your entire monetization scheme. So you have really a Sophie's choice. Censor yourself and keep your payment processors and anger all of your customers, or ignore it and basically have no way to monetize yourself. It's really bad. And you can see this happen a lot in Japan, and people were saying this is going to go beyond Japan. So many antis and other pro-censorship people were saying, oh, who cares? It's those icky Japanese video games. Who cares? Oh, you guys are a bunch of gooners, bunch of losers. Who cares? And people who are mature about this say, hey, that might not even be my cup of tea, but this is a horrible standard that's going to eventually extend to places like Steam, and that's exactly what's happening. Also, you can see the prioritization of these payment processors. We talked about this as well a few months ago, where there was a whistleblower that came out and said MasterCard and Visa turned a very blind eye to how their payment processing was used to profit from abuse material targeting children that was being uploaded on OnlyFans. And there was almost no real recourse taken by OnlyFans. In fact, they pretty much denied this was happening, and despite evidence that it was possibly happening. And that's the kind of standards we're working with here, right? Video games, bad. OnlyFans abusing or uploading content that's abusing children, totally fine by their standards, I guess. Now, of course, going back to Collective Shout, they've done nothing about OnlyFans yet. They've gone after these video games for a very long time now, but they haven't been able to take down OnlyFans. And I can't imagine why. Well, first of all, it seems, as it'll be very clear, they don't have a priority for helping out real-life people, real-life children for that matter. They focus on video games, and in particular, you can see them celebrating their big win 2 days ago about how they got hundreds of adult-themed games removed from Steam, and that's not surprising, right? It's a lot easier to go after some game that was developed by one dude on his own versus going after major platforms or any sort of real-life harm going on that'll actually take a lot of effort. This is why they celebrate stuff like this as a major win. And just think about the things they're saying here about these taboo themes that they're getting rid of. Like, this is the bane of women's rights, games like The Coffin of Andy and Lele. And like I said, this could target basically everything, these new Steam rules. If you apply them correctly, you could go after like Grand Theft Auto, Baldur's Gate, all of these games, and you know, it's just crazy the scope of this, and people don't seem to realize this. And this was heading our way for a very long time. Now, if you think it just ends there with these like 18 plus games, no, it doesn't. This company, this group, has been targeting many games outside of that scope we just described, including games like Detroit Become Human. They're trying to get this banned in Australia, making a real effort to do so. They made another effort against Grand Theft Auto 5. And by the way, this was successful. This actually succeeded and got games removed from Target and Kmart's. Okay? And here's another big win for this company. They were able to help bully and harass a local bakery that was selling a shirt called "We Got the Best Buns in Town." Because apparently this was objectifying women to such a degree, they had to be publicly shamed and attacked into removing this. This is the kind of stuff they're doing. Don't you get it? They like bullying people. They like bullying people into having their content removed. They don't go after the big guys largely. They go after the small guys. And that's how they really get these major wins for them. Now let's rip the Band-Aid off. This is the same company that defended the Netflix, I don't even like calling it a film, Cuties. Now, for those who are blessed enough to not know what Cuties is, that was a quote-unquote film uploaded to Netflix a couple years ago that was produced in France, and the entire theme of that movie was basically a child's twerking competition. No, this was not animated, this was not a video game. This was using real child actors around the ages of 11 and 12. And this was out there, and people like Collective Shout defended this. And we'll see, they defend it even more than what you're seeing right here. That's how messed up their priorities are. Many such cases right here. The people crying about video games and anime and things like that, coming out and defending something like Cuties that was exploiting real child actors. In fact, the audition process for this, which of course would include a lot of inappropriate behavior, included hundreds of children. And they're defending this while claiming to be advocates for these young girls. Now, let's go to this individual, Melinda Tankard Reist, who is the co-founder of this, right? This group. and other groups kind of in the same lane, so to speak, and they defended cuties as well, saying some thoughts on hashtag cuties and why they are not calling for a ban. And you'll see the hypocrisy is through the roof. They're the same person who many years ago went after many different games, saying that poontang influenced heroines in video games are causing damage to an entire generation of Australian children, and they have to be stopped. And basically they say down here, this is a quote from Melinda, that attraction is drawn to her sexual characteristics with tight clothing, emphasizing large, surgically enhanced breasts. So apparently if you have a busty frame, it was surgically enhanced. That's insane. And look at the characters they use as examples. You got Hanukkah, you got Lara Croft, and then of course you got Cortana. What? What are we doing? Who let these Karens have any power whatsoever? It's insane. Who listens to these people? Clearly someone who's not interested in creative liberties or, I don't know, making money, but they're listening to these maniacs. And in their tweet sharing that article they were a part of, someone asked recently, only 15 hours ago, on this old post, saying, how about you talk about the millions of child brides in Yemen? And Melinda says, I have, in other countries too, work with NGOs globally trying to stop child marriage. And the previous poster says, can you show us? Crickets. Crickets across the board. And understand this Melinda person is terminally online. They're tweeting like every waking minute of their day, so they definitely saw this, okay? And they knew they had nothing to respond with whatsoever. Now, I always made the connection between a lot of these pro-censorship people, especially the ones who go to payment processors, having a big issue with anything anime-themed or anything that seems like it has any sort of tie to Japanese animation or art style, right? And of course, Melinda has joined in on the fight to try to take down Grok's new AI waifu system, which I talked about a couple videos ago if you want to get more information on that. There's a group of feminists, including Melinda, who are going out there and trying to get this banned because they believe this is a sexualized, childlike animation. And they think this is really harming people, including sharing posts from this Haley McNamara individual who thinks this is a child in proximity to sexual comments because it described being aroused by being choked. The reach here is insane. But look at this individual, right? Melinda retweeted this person who is a part of this National Center on Sexual Exploitation. And we'll see another person from that in just a second. And it's crazy, the inconsistencies between these groups. These groups work together. These two groups we've mentioned, Collective Shout and this National Center here, they work very closely. And just in 2020, this Haley McNamara person said that cuties is socially irresponsible. It harms people. It wasn't necessary. Nobody needed this sort of message. The message is implicit. You don't have to show it using real kids. This is disgusting. But then she's working closely with a company and some people who routinely defended that film with their entire chest as hard as they could. Make it make sense. And it gets even weirder because this person, Danny Pinter, who we mentioned in my video talking about this new AI waifu system, is also a member of this same National Center. And of course, Melinda retweets them as well. And you can see how interconnected all of this is. And this is the person who called this poontang culture and said, if you think normalizing and utilizing an almost childlike appearing poontangified female anime character with spicy mode who strips as your AI chatbot tool does not affect how you see women or desensitize you to SA/exploitation, then basically we're screwed as a society. And this is, again, insane projection. If you look at this system of this busty anime girl and you immediately start thinking of children, that's a red flag on you, buddy. On top of that, you know, again, they're making these claims like, oh, consuming these things will harm you or encourage you to do these certain things in real life. They can't produce anything that's reliable to prove that. I mean, this is basically Jack Thompson 2.0, right? Where he came out many years ago and led a crusade filled with 90s soccer moms to go after Grand Theft Auto because the violence in those games would be replicated in real life if those games weren't banned. And obviously that fell apart when people realized, oh, this guy has no standing whatsoever to back up his claims that his entire movement hinged upon. But of course, again, here's another person from this collective shout group saying, retweet, hashtag Japan bans possession of CP but excludes manga comics or anime video. Again, you might think these things with manga or anime might be disgusting to you. That's fine. But this isn't really the own she thinks it is. It's showing that Japan knows the difference between material that's abusing real kids versus fiction. Again, you can have an issue morally, but to compare the two is just wrong. And the fact that they don't get that, well, there's a reason why they have 1 like and 45 comments. It is brutal. But there's one more repost from Melinda about this subject, where this person, she repost says, pervert nerds are responsible for most of society's ills. Prove me wrong. Yep. They're blaming the disgusting, pervy gamers. They're also blaming incels in many of the comments. It's just so predictable with these types. It's not even funny. And of course, Melinda's getting very upset. Okay? They're trying to masquerade what they're doing as saving all of these young girls from being exploited, when in reality, they're using a bunch of Steam games to try to make a connection with no evidence that it's somehow going to protect kids if those games are banned. And you can see their associate saying all the violent poontang-addled incels in your mentions. And she says, ha, yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, they're immediately trying to play the victim. This whole thing is blown up in their face. Yeah, they were successful in getting this new Steam rule and guidelines, but people are tearing them apart on social media. And they got so upset, they released a follow-up article saying, we're calling on payment processors to stop profiting from these taboo themes. So naturally, misogynistic gamers have doubled down in defense of their R-word games. We've responded to their claims here. Again, if you don't like these things, don't play them. Don't seek them out. You're never going to accidentally come across these games. And if you're concerned about kids being exposed to this sort of stuff, you should always be concerned about what kids are consuming, but that is a parental issue. That is something parents need to take charge of when it comes to video games. That's how it's always been. But in the article where they're talking about misogynistic males attacking them, they say all these men are attacking them just because they're hateful men. And then they cite Madam Savvy, who, if you're not familiar, we talked about her a couple times. She is a woman. So because they see criticism made by a woman, they automatically assume it must be a man. Seems a bit offensive, if you ask me, especially for a group that's so pro-women, right? But things keep going, and eventually they really go on their victim arc, where they say, you are morally bankrupt and destroying civilization. How dare you say gamers getting off to blah, 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 blah makes kids violent, ? Also in my inbox this morning with a bunch of very violent messages, right? But the problem is the domain on that email produces no results, which reminds a lot of people of an old situation from about 10 years ago with the original Gamergate, when that started back then, where you had Brianna Wu, who was trying to say, as a female developer, I'm being harassed by all of these misogynistic males. And they showed proof with a screenshot from this community page where basically they say, is Brianna Wu a terrible person? Blah, 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 blah. This person says, running out of ammo or something, Brianna? Because unfortunately they try to create a fake post but didn't have their developer account logged out. So it showed that they were a developer, not a random user. Caught in 4K, and that's what a lot of people are saying about this. But it doesn't help the allies over at Collective Shouts from saying, I note that all of these men sending vile threats never seem to input their real email addresses. They're happy to say the most disgusting thing whilst hiding behind their keyboards, but never show us their face. So cowardly. Why would anyone show their face to people like you? You would weaponize it and try to ruin their lives. We've seen you do it with little local bakeries. I mean, that's how crazy it gets. But there's something interesting going on here. We talked about this yesterday, actually, towards the end of my video. Anna Valence, the very controversial, very disliked, now former Vice reporter, actually made an article talking about everything going on here with what we've been discussing today, and their article got shut down. They came out with this: group behind Steam censorship policies have powerful allies and targeted popular games with outlandish claims. And eventually, their article was taken down pretty quickly, I think within 24 hours. And they have now protested, so to speak. A bunch of Vice journalists have now quit. And there's a lot to say about this. We have a million criticisms of Anna Valens. But the thing is, this person is the last, I guess, champion of this cause, right? Vice, number one, I think, was tired of them. And I think it's very clear. They were about to head out the door and they said, wait a second, I'm not fired, I quit. And it's because this person has made multiple now deleted hit pieces on the VTuber Kirsha. They made a hit piece on the VTuber group via Lore. And ironically enough, they were trying to cancel that group for problematic adult themes in their content. But now this person's turning around saying, hey, wait a second, not these games on Steam. These are ones we have to defend. Too late. You're a hypocrite. Because you ignored it in other contexts. You wanted to cancel other people over that sort of stuff. But now you want to say, wait a second, live and let live with this content in these video games. But I also think the worst candidate to kind of run this campaign, and Vice knew it, right? This is a person who is everything this group is going after, all of the behavior they've done over the years, it would have backfired really badly. But there's another funny story before we head out today, where you have this Khalif guy, Khalif Positivity Peddler Adams, who is someone who's very buddy-buddy with a lot of people in the gaming industry, who came out initially saying, catching up on some news from the weekend, major props to Collective Shout, would love to have someone from the team come on our podcast and talk about the campaign. This has since been deleted, because this person is a massive, massive, massive hypocrite and basically supports all the games that they've gone after, including Detroit Become Human, as well as Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6 through the previews of that. So, you can't really do that when you're trying to celebrate Collective Shout, who wants to ban everything that you're basically trying to promote in your own tweets. Very hypocritical, but unfortunately this situation was visible from a mile away, and that's what's truly disappointing. We now have to really pick up the pieces and go after this aggressively, because now it's touching platforms like Steam. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.